What's up, Barnhill family, and welcome back to the channel.
Yo.
So, Nick, UFC 268 absolutely delivered,
Yeah.
and what an incredible main event. What an incredible fight between Colby Covington, Kamaru Usman. These guys now have shared the octagon for 10 rounds, and it took 10 rounds to finally get a hug and a smile out of these two. Finally, some mutual respect shown. But an amazing, amazing couple of fights between these two guys. And I think the takeaway here is we really just know who the two best welterweights are in the world. And Kamaru just happens to be better by the slightest of margins.
Yeah, that was really crazy. You know, when we saw the first fight and it was an instant classic, an epic fight, you know, one for the ages, one to be nominated as Fight of the Year. When you know that they're going to run it back and it's just a matter of time, you have these unrealistic expectations that it's going to outperform the first one because it was just so good. How can anything? It's like a movie, right? The sequel's never quite as good as the first one. But I think that one was just as good, if not better than the first one. It was really, really crazy. The fact that they've shared the octagon now for like almost 50 minutes gives us so much crazy content to watch, and like literally just like the most impressive level of MMA that we have right now. I did like that we saw some wrestling, you know, some takedowns, some offense, some defense, stuff like that from both of the guys, because that was one portion that they both are very good at that we didn't see in the first fight.
Yeah.
So it was cool to see them mix it up all the way through. True mixed martial arts combat competition, and man, it was just really awesome. Special night in Madison Square Garden.
Yeah, and a smooth night for Trevor Whitman's team. I mean, they went 3-3. There really is hardly any team doing it as good as
That's
that team.
Coach of
right
the
now.
Year.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
No doubt about it. And Daniel Valverde and the Covington corner did an excellent job as well.
Yeah.
You know, Colby looked very good. DC had issue with the statisticians who said that Kamaru was not taken down. I believe it was in the third round because, you know, there was so much talk leading up to the fight that Kamaru has 100% takedown defense.
Yeah.
And DC said, look, they said, well, it's not enough control. Colby got to his back, but there was no control established. DC said, look, in wrestling, when you're behind somebody and their knees are on the ground, that's 2 points.
Right.
That's a takedown. So I think we saw effectively Kamaru Usman get taken down for the first time in his career, but he just was able to answer every riddle and every question that Colby had. And I think the difference was his power here. I mean, Colby landed some really good shots, even had Kamaru wobbling a little bit at times. But Kamaru, when he lands those power punches, I mean, if it weren't for Covington's toughness, it would have been a second-round TKO. I mean, Kamaru really is delivering some tremendous power right now.
Yeah, when he strikes, it's quality over quantity. He's not going to throw a bunch at you, but everything is going to hurt. Colby Covington knew that. He had a great guard, was landing his own strikes and doing really well. Seemed to come alive in about the third round, and I think that takedown is actually what really proved to Colby Covington that he belonged in there, and he knew he was at the same caliber of skill as Kamaru Usman.
Yeah.
You know, when he did that, I feel like leading up to that third round, he might have thought that Kamaru was like not a human.
Yeah.
But then he takes him down, and whether they give him the points or not, I never wrestled in high school, so I know how points work, but I also would always defer to DC.
Yeah.
And people like that. Chael Sonnen also said that's 2 points, and so I'll always just go back to those guys. If they're saying it's 2 points, then I believe it's 2 points.
If DC says it's a takedown, no statistician behind a computer is going to convest me otherwise.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that was actually a big turning point in the fight because Kamaru did win the first 2 rounds, in my opinion, pretty soundly. Obviously, the second one. The third round, when he got that takedown, and I'm going to call it that because I think that did shift the momentum of the fight. I think right then and there, the tide started to turn. Kamaru started to show a little bit less mobility and started to kind of be a little bit more stationary of a target, which led to Colby being able to hit his target more frequently. And then I had Colby kind of winning the third round and winning the fourth round. And I'm thinking, this is like deja vu. Like the first fight, we're 2-2 going into the fifth.
Yep.
And all of it is for nothing because this fifth and final round is the only one that really matters. Now, we did have a 10-8 round kind of in the second round. So that might have played a factor as well. But I thought it was 2-2 going into the fifth and final round. And if Colby would have put the gas on a little bit more, I think it would have been closer to being a controversial victory. But I think the judges got it right, 48-47. Is that what they called it?
I think 2 48-47s and 1 49-46. I don't agree with the 49-46.
I don't see how you can come up with that. But the 48-47 for Usman, I agree with. I think Colby agrees with it. He knows that he was in a dogfight, and he gave the mutual respect, got the mutual respect. Kamaru Usman said he's made a lot of improvements since he went to MMA Masters. So I think whatever Colby's doing, that recipe is really working. Obviously, Trevor Whitman working with Kamaru Usman is working.
Well, I mean, both of these guys are so skilled that the trash talking, the bad blood, the animosity, whatever you want to call it, is there. But at the same time, the respect is just as much present, even though they didn't want to admit it. They finally did, because the reality is it's very unlikely that we're going to see these two fight again. Kamaru's at the point now where he's starting to get into the GOAT conversation, certainly at welterweight.
Yeah.
You know, George St. Pierre happens to also be in that division, and, you know, he's considered the GOAT by many of all divisions.
Right.
So it's kind of an uphill climb. But I think with a couple more solid wins, Kamaru certainly stakes his claim. It's just a matter of how much longer will Kamaru stay in the game. And I think Colby did the right thing, because you don't want to call out the trilogy. You don't want to keep the bad blood going, because you're not getting that fight again. There's too many people. There's Vicente Luque, who we could get into him because he missed weight as the alternate, which is like the worst thing you can do. So I think that pretty much solidifies Leon as the next title challenger, provided that he gets past Masvidal, which I think he probably will.
Yeah.
And so, you know, there's other people in line, and Colby kind of moved himself back, so he's shifted gears.
Right.
He set his sights to, as he calls him, Street Judas,
Yeah.
Jorge Masvidal, the bad blood there, the roommate situation. I feel like that's a really good matchup for him, and I think Kamaru can now have his rematch with Edwards, but I don't think that Edwards, honestly, can bring something that Colby didn't bring, because he doesn't have that gas tank, that wrestling pedigree. Edwards does have the edge as far as like crispness and quickness with the strikes. I do think he's a little bit faster and a little bit more precise than Colby, but I don't think anybody's knocking Kamaru out at this stage. I mean, he was literally on very shaky legs in some of those rounds with Colby, and he just has pure will and determination and stayed up. Will Kamaru stick around long enough for Khamzat Chimaev to? I mean, I think we all know at this point Khamzat Chimaev's fighting for a title sometime next year, maybe 2023. It's
early next year, in my opinion.
It's pretty inevitable at this point. Dana said last night at the press conference, you know, it's a whole different ball game when you get into the top 10, so we'll see how he does there. But when you beat the number 11 guy without getting hit, how much better is the number 10 guy? You know what I mean?
Right.
So I think it's pretty inevitable. It's just a matter of, you know, you're hearing about boxing with Canelo and potential retirement and stuff like that. How long will Kamaru stick around to determine whether or not he truly becomes the GOAT of the welterweight division? But I think it's up to him, and if he sticks around, I think he's got it in the bag.
Yeah, it's going to be tough. George St. Pierre ran through the division, then he ran through it again. But you can't look at Kamaru Usman and say he's not doing the same. If he's basically put game bred Masvidal in no man's land. He can't fight for a title again as long as Usman's the champ. Colby Covington now can't fight for the title as long as Usman's the champ. If he beats Leon Edwards, Leon cannot fight for a title again as long as Kamaru's the champ. That's 2-0 against all of those guys. And then, you know, now you have to start looking at new blood. Thank God Chimaev's coming in, because then we'd start to be looking at like maybe a Gilbert Burns again. And then he'd be in the same scenario as the other three guys that have been beaten twice by the champion. And now you're like having to, but those guys are still in the top 5. So now you're having to pull from the 6 through 10 part of the rankings to just give him an opponent that he hasn't already beat 2 times over. So I think that Kamaru Usman has some, if he is willing to stick around a little bit longer, you know, I'm saying maybe somewhere between 3 and 6 more fights, he can cement himself as, for sure, arguably the greatest welterweight of all time. But without a doubt, right now, he's the most dominant champion the UFC has. And if he continues this going at the level he's doing, at the skill level of skill that each one of these fighters is having right now, like, make no mistake about it, George St. Pierre was amazing and ahead of his time, but the people he was fighting were not at that level that we're seeing in MMA right now. And that's nothing
That's
he
just
can
the
be
reality.
blamed
The
for.
sport's getting better. The
Right.
competition is getting deeper, and the sport's growing as a result of
Right.
it.
MMA has progressed like no other sport we've ever seen.
Yeah.
Jiu-jitsu is kind of a close second where it's kind of just going really, really fast. But those are the only those are the only sports that are moving as fast as they are. So Kamaru is beating these guys that have skill sets that are just perfectly rounded, or specialists that are really good at something. And he's able to literally beat them on the ground, beat them on the feet, beat them 2 times over. So I think Kamaru Usman just needs to stay clear and keep winning these titles. And I think the biggest test will be fighting and beating the fighters of tomorrow, which Khamzat Chimaev has proven that he is. If he can beat Khamzat Chimaev and defend that title, now we're talking about GOAT status.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I think also for Colby, he's got a bright future if Kamaru is going to walk away, because I think it's like the DC John Jones situation. Had there not been a John Jones, DC could have been the greatest of all time.
I agree.
But the reality is there was a John Jones, unfortunately, for DC. And I think Colby, I mean, it's like 1A and 1B to me. They're so razor thin. And even Colby, I said, I think he could win this fight if he stopped switching stances, because he kept he was finding a lot of success out of southpaw with that body kick.
Yeah.
He hit Kamaru a few times really hard with that body kick, but then he would switch stances, and that kind of put Kamaru in his groove, because most people in this world are right-handed. So naturally, when you spar mostly right-handed people, just like you encounter mostly right-handed people on a daily basis. So Colby, I think if he made one tactical error, it was that he abandoned that southpaw stance a bit too much and a bit too soon, and he wasn't taking a whole lot of damage as far as the leg kicks goes. I feel like he could have stuck it out a little bit longer. Maybe he would have had some more success, but the night belonged to Kamaru either way, and I think you're absolutely right. He's beaten the people of yesterday, took the belt from Tyron Woodley, beaten the people of today, now he's beating some of them again, and I think we all can agree that Khamzat Chimaev and certainly Vicente Luque, and I do believe he'll get his title shot. He had a little hiccup with the weight situation, but I think they would have given him more time had Kamaru and Colby not made weight, and he actually did have to step in. They would have given him 2 more hours, so I'm confident that he would have made championship weight, but still, it's just not a good look. But I think he's going to get his chance at some point, and so I think if he beats Luque, he's going to fight Leon again. He probably will beat him again. If he beats Luque and then he beats Chimaev, the guys of tomorrow, I think you're looking at the greatest welterweight and one of the best fighters the world's ever seen.
I completely agree. I can't wait to see what both of them do next. I know they're going to probably want to spend the holidays healing up and relaxing. But yeah, the table has been set for Gamebred Masvidal to fight Colby Covington, and that's not a fall off as far as Covington goes. When you lose a fight, generally you do kind of have a fall off the card from main to co-main, or maybe to the curtain jerker of the main card, or maybe into the prelims. Colby Covington versus Jorge Masvidal, I bet you they put the BMF title back up on the line for it. I think that it does pay-per-view numbers comparable to what we saw last night. I think it's a mega fight. And when you've got the biggest star and then now you've got one of the most polarizing figures in the sport going after each other, the promotion's just going to be bananas for that. I really hope the UFC steers into that one, and then they give Kamaru Usman the competitors that have earned the spot, and then obviously the guys of tomorrow like Khamzat Chimaev.
For sure, yeah. And Covington versus Masvidal, no doubt, is the main event on a pay-per-view card that does probably close to 1 million buys.
Insanity.
For sure. Guys, thanks so much for watching this video. Drop us a comment and let us know what you thought about UFC 268's main event and where Kamaru sits on your welterweight GOAT status. We always love chatting with you guys in the comments. And if you haven't already, a subscribe to the channel and a like on this video is much appreciated. And guys, we will see you in the next one.
Peace.